but let's see, what am I stressing out about right now? Haven't done a video in a while. Let's talk lawsuits. So probably, I don't know if enough people sort of talk about it. I don't know if maybe people are embarrassed about it, but like getting sued sucks. And being a business owner, it's kind of crazy, you know, dealing with all the things that you have to do, you know, and so there's so many things, right, that are just crazy tough about being a business owner. There's so many rules and regulations, and so I'm going to vent for a little bit here on lawsuits in general, but not just the lawsuits themselves. So let's start with bottom feeder law firms, right? And I've thought about this too, the analogy, or I don't know if that's even the right word there, but like, I'm sure everybody or most people have seen, you know, depending on where they're driving, how freeways are just being taken over by lawyers, right? I think the most common ones are, you know, have you been in an accident, right? I mean, I can name like the names, I've seen so many, right? Like there's Drake the lawyer, right? There's Jesse, you know, is it Jesse James? I don't know, something wrong, call Ann Fong. There's just a ton, right? They're literally advertising, if you have been in an accident, call us. And essentially the way they work is, of course, they will just sue anybody. So they don't care who it is, right? If you were in an accident, they're just gonna, you don't pay a penny. So their advertisement, right? You call them and they basically just tell you like, hey, listen, here's how we operate it. All of them do this. You don't pay a penny unless we win. And they will just fire off, you know, blanket template emails to any individual person, business, you name it. And once that email gets sent out, those other people need to respond. If those other people or businesses don't have a lawyer, guess what? They're gonna have to go get a lawyer to respond. If they don't get a lawyer, you know, they're just gonna try to milk you for money, right? And if you don't have a lawyer and you don't wanna, you know, you get scared, right? If you don't get a lawyer, then they're gonna tell you like, you know, if it's a big accident, I mean, that's just gonna be crazy, right? They can sue you for big money. And of course, sometimes you're gonna go after the insurance companies. But I'm gonna talk specifically about labor. So you probably don't see these billboards, but in labor types of newspapers and where you go to find jobs, and we're talking like, you know, minimum wage, low income jobs, there's advertisements all over the place, which is, do you hate your boss? Do you hate your job? Call us and we'll sue and you're gonna get paid. And there are so many people that just go and they'll jump on to these bottom feeding websites, bottom feeding law firms, I should say, and they go to the website, they just put their information in, the lawyer reaches out to them and just says, listen, we have a template. What we're gonna do is, we're gonna reach out to your former employer or current employer, and we're gonna say, you didn't get appropriate meal breaks, you didn't get paid for your hours, for overtime, you name it. It's a scare tactic. So it's happening to us. We probably, more so, let's talk about our property management business, right? We probably get one of these lawsuits every year. This year happens to be a really difficult year where we had one employee, and this is like from 2024, you know, talk to this law firm. They reach out to us, and here's how it works. We get that email, you know, and it's a formal request of, we need all documentation on all pay periods, lunch breaks, you know, time cards, benefits, please provide workers' compensation insurance. Like, they're just asking for everything that they can, and we have to provide it. Now, it's also a lawsuit, so they're claiming that we made errors, and they're hoping that either A, if we don't have a lawyer, we're just gonna respond back with like, well, what's going on? And they're gonna say, look, here are the damages. we're suing you for, $10,000. Cut us a check for $10,000 and we'll go away, right? So probably some percentage of, business owners, I don't know, maybe just pay that, right? We don't. Instead, we're like, no, you're not gonna strong arm us. So, well, we can't just reply. So we actually have to get a lawyer. So now I am forced to go hire my own lawyer and pay for a retainer. Interesting fact based on my observations and research, so it's not like a data that I can easily check, but when we start calling around California, you go online and you search for employment lawyers, employment law firms, 90 to 95%, they all represent the employees. Nobody wants to represent the employers. That's no fun. We can't sue employees, but it's so easy for employees to sue their employers, right? And maybe when it's big companies, it's whatever, but you're talking small to medium-sized businesses. That's what we're talking about here. So easy. They hire that lawyer, they sue, doesn't cost them a penny. I now have to go get a retainer with a lawyer. Cool. So I fork out $4,000 or $5,000. I gotta pay our lawyer now $1,000 or $2,000 to write up a letter, basically, that they're gonna email back to that law firm saying, wrong, we're not gonna pay you a dime, buzz off, go away, and they go away. But every year we get at least one employee that does that. So every year we have to pay $1,000 or $2,000 just to respond with that letter, right? Now this year we got an employee that apparently contacted and reached out to 4 different law firms. So we're getting hit up by multiple law firms. So we now have to pay our lawyer extra to get back to each one of them saying, hey, this person has already contacted somebody else prior to you. So we're paying because this person is working with 4. This person that we're not gonna name, she was a cleaner for the cleaning business. She brought her boyfriend onto our properties to have him clean. Jazzy thought she was doing, them a favor by saying like, okay, cool, if he wants to go there and work, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll compensate him as well. Guess what? He ends up suing us too. Nice. So now we got both of them suing us. One of them ended up contacting the labor board saying that, oh, we didn't have appropriate insurance. So let's talk about this, how this snowballed. So now we got audited through workers' compensation, and they're checking on our insurance, backdating on all of the employees we had for our time period. Now, here's how workers' comp works. You have to have workers' compensation insurance for every single employee you have. It doesn't matter how long they work for you. So in Jazzy's cleaning business, we hire a cleaner, they show up for training, they work 1 shift and then they quit. So we'll have 10 employees over the course of a few months that worked 1 day. Well, we had to have workers' compensation for those 10 employees for a full month, and you have to call and cancel and whatnot. It's very expensive. Well, we got audited, and they're going back and they're claiming that we had a bunch of employees and blah, blah. Anyways, so now we have to go back and pay a bunch of money for some of these employers that quit. But anyways, that's a separate. But these are the complications that we have to deal with as a business owner. And generally, a lot of this stuff starts with, employees, and we have some really good employees. So I'm not saying it's that bad with everyone, but man, every single year we get a lawsuit. Every single year we got to hire a lawyer, right? We got to pay them, and just to get them to go away. And in some of these cases, they get multiple lawyers. Now you're paying, multiple for the same person. Crazy. We've got a couple of other lawsuits that we're dealing with. So we have to have our employment law firm on retainer. We also have a real estate lawyer on retainer with some other things that we've been dealing with. Even when we sold one of our houses, and we were nice enough where when we sold it, we had a solar loan on this house, and the people we were selling to said, hey, we can't afford to pay that solar balance off in full right away. And I said, okay, so how about we will make the monthly payments on this solar loan for you. It's $30,000, $32,000, I think, at the time of the sale. We'll make the monthly payments for you, and then you just reimburse us. But at the 6-month mark, you got to figure out a way to get a loan and pay this off or whatever. We can't carry this loan forever, right? That's us doing you a favor. They didn't want to get a secondary loan at the time when they were buying the property because it could impact them actually getting the mortgage lending, right? Well, we get to the 6-month mark, they don't want to pay. They're making excuses. We get to the 8-month mark of just going back and forth, and I'm literally telling them, like, dude, we had this conversation. You literally said you were going to. All of a sudden, the guy starts saying, I never said that. I never said that. Then he tries to throw my real estate agent, who's also my friend, under the bus and goes, oh, no, I had conversations with them. They never said that. I'm like, really? I ping my real estate agent. Dude gets back to me right away, and he's like, oh, no, I have it in writing. He literally did an addendum on the actual purchase agreement of the house that says, you will pay off that loan in 6 months. They signed it. Both the husband and wife signed it. So we emailed that to them, and they go, oh, well, we can't pay it. And I'm like, dude, I am sorry that you are not in a position where it's favorable for you to pay. Maybe it's interest rates are high. I go, but guess what? It's impacting our ability to get additional loans. It's impacting Jazzy. Jazzy's got a $30,000 balance sitting there, and she needs to get other loans for other parts of the business. So we kind of just in a very nice way, we're like, look, we're willing to work with you. If you want to pay us off, and we could be the lender for you, and we'll have an interest rate that would be similar to. We'll come up with some terms, and they're like, nope. And I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like this and that. And then they just go, you know what? I think we need to go talk to someone professional about this. And all of a sudden, I'm like, really? I know where you're going. You're gonna go get a lawyer up, and guess what? A lawyer gets back to us saying, hey, so they're not going to be able to pay the full amount, but we're going to go ahead and settle. We'll give you 60%, blah, blah. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? I have an agreement. And they said, oh, and you owe the client money for this and that. And I'm like, don't introduce separate issues. I have legal documents here. Oh, this and that, they're in no position. I'm, of course, using ChatGPT on the side to be like, respond. I have an agreement, read the agreement. ChatGPT is just like, respond with this. So, of course, yeah, I'm responding back and forth. And then after a few back and forths, I'm like, and they're on the email thread, the buyers, right? And I'm just like, hey, legal agreement, are you kidding me? I copy my real estate lawyer for transparency. I go, listen, I'm not looping him in right now. I'm just adding him for transparency. Do you want to advise your clients to just keep going back and forth with me? Why don't you and I just jump on a phone call for an hour and we can negotiate back and forth? Because I'm pretty sure your hourly cost to my clients is way more than my time. So what do you want to do? Oh, okay, yeah, we're going to pay. Oh, now you're going to pay in full. After I already had to loop in my lawyer. Well, guess what? Then they send me an agreement from the lawyer saying, if we pay this in full, that's going to go, and, like now there's no more, there's no more going back and forth. You're going to waive all rights to anything else if there's ever issues with these, buyers, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, now you sent me a legal document to sign. Well, nice. Now I actually have to send it to my lawyer, have him review the document. He reviews it. He spends a couple of hours with another lawyer rewriting some things, crossing some things out to make it better in my favor, right? And then we send it back, and they review it, and they do that, and then they finally signed it, and they sent us the wire for the money they owed us. These people should have paid us, by the way, it's like almost a year. So I'm like, these people should have paid us about 4 or 5 months ago, and we would have been done with it. Would have, been knocked off Jazzy's credit. It would have done us a lot of good. And instead, I still had to get my lawyer involved, have him, review this, and I spent a bunch of money on that too. So I know I'm ranting. So I don't know. I'll have to recheck this before I post it. But man, it's like, without getting into all of the issues we have now, but like we're probably, we've probably spent about $50,000 in legal fees this year. Which also the lawyers we had to use for the workers' compensation claims. That's the state they want to work, they want to audit us and do a bunch of stuff. So then we have to have, a special lawyer there, review a bunch of documents, help us make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble. It's just crazy. It's crazy, right? Working 7 days a week, stressing about everything. And on top of that, you got to deal with issues like this. To the point where, Jazzy's freaking out, talking about like, dude, if we just have to keep paying for this and we keep getting lawsuits and audit and all that, is it even worth it? Do we just, file bankruptcy? So anyway, she mentioned that. We're not doing that. Not a good idea. But man, it's crazy. Crazy the amount of, you know, crap you got to deal with being a business owner, on top of all the other stuff that you got to do. Anyways, that's me ranting. I'm all good, but dude, bottom feeding law firms, lawyers, no joke, man. Garbage. All right, peace.